Hello, YouTube friends. Are you there? Can you see me? If you can see me, let me know in the comments, and we will get underway here. So thank you so much, and hello KG. Hey Kevin, thank you for being there, my friend. And first off, today's topic is my 10 best filtration tips, and these are tips that I've picked up over the years. A few of them I've come up with. A few of them I've stolen from other YouTubers. And let's see, people are getting on here. Hello, and good morning. Thank you for joining me for the live stream today. Today I am wearing an old Hap Nation. This is an old Hap Nation t-shirt, and this is just a little shout out to my friend Evan Alexander, who put it all out there in his last video. If you haven't had a chance, take a look at the last video from IFG, where he, I think it's the truth about IFG, or the truth about Evan, or whatever. Check it out, and that's right, gang. And you know, he just puts it all out there. It couldn't have been easy to do that, but he did. And you know, I respect and love the guy. I've had the opportunity to hang with him. He is the real deal, and you get what you see with him. There's no television personality. There's no YouTube personality that's different from who he is. He is who he is, and I really enjoyed the time I spent with him over in Houston. So first off, some shout outs to my admins. I want to shout out to the moderators, Dennis Ruedel, Kevin Green, and Candi Overhuls, who I understand can moderate 4 live talks at once. That to me is unbelievable, but I heard she can do it. That is an amazing multitasking talent that I don't think I'd even try. So at any rate, thank you, moderators, and for your help. And a shout out to last week's super chatters, Cesar Sosa, thank you so much for your help. HV8019, Alan Wilson, you know, thank you folks for the help that you give to support the super chats. It's very, very appreciated. Also, I want to welcome those that are getting up at crazy hours to watch my live stream. Last week we had, I think we had Vanik Keo from in Cambodia, Dead Squirrel 69, Clark. I don't know where these names come up from. In Somalia, we had Mario Bruno Petvar in Slovenia, and we had also Dan Tyler 6 over in the UK, and I believe we had some folks in Australia and China as well. So welcome to those of you from all corners of the world. So welcome to the live stream. So today's live stream, I want to talk to you about let me just get one thing set up here. And today's live stream, I want to talk to you about filtration, and one of the topics that I really enjoy, and I'm just going to get right into it. And these are the top 10 that I've come up with. There's more. There's always more than 10. And when I do a video, I always end up with 15 or something. And I might actually release these 10 in a video format. Only because I originally started it as a video, and what happened was it had some difficulty uploading, and it was already late at night, and I didn't want to keep messing with it, and so I ended up just saying, you know what, I'm just going to do this as a live stream, and then maybe release the video later anyway. So we'll go ahead and go from there. So I hope you're having coffee, because this is Coffee and Cichlids, and I'm having coffee today in one of my cups. If you can see that there, I finally broke down and picked up one of my cups, and on one side it has my eye biter. You can see him there, and it's got that little message. That message: we all learn from each other, which is very true. We all learn from each other. I learn as much from you as you learn from me, I assure you. And the other side is the channel logo, and that's my Taiwan reef that I have in the tank behind me right now. When he was just a little guy, he colored up very early. A lot of folks thought he was juiced. Turned out he was just a really good looking, a really good fish. And he was sent to me by mistake. By Tampa Bay Cichlids, and they ended up sending me the right fish, but they let me keep the Taiwan reef. So anyway, kind of a little bit of a bonus fish that turned out to be a good fish. So let's get into my best 10 filtration tips, and then we will go ahead and get into some of your questions and comments. Some of your comments over the last few weeks have cracked me up, and so I'm going to share a few of those with you too. Okay, so let me see if I can get this monitor going here, and you know, I really enjoy people with a sense of humor. As a matter of fact, I really have a hard time with people who don't have a sense of humor, and it's one of my measurements for people. You know, does this person have a good sense of humor? If they don't, it's really hard for me to hang out with them because I hate to have to explain jokes. Okay, so here are the top 10. These are my top 10. Now these are not going to be your top 10. You're gonna have your own list, of course, and you may agree or you may disagree with my list. I definitely want to hear what your filtration tips are. I want you to put those in the comments and let me know what your favorites are. But my first tip is to know the flow. You have to know the pattern and flow of your filter, and you know what I mean when I say that. I mean, let's say that this is your canister filter, and with a sun, that water from the tank is going to go down to the bottom. It's going to go down here, and it's going to slosh around, and then it's going to get pulled up by the motor. And you know, by the pump, it's going to get pulled back up to the tank, and it's going to get pushed through the media, right? So you've got to know which way is the water flowing in your filter, and same thing for, let's say, a fluval. Fluval is very different. Fluval, the water circulates around, you know, goes through all those big sponges, then gets up to the middle center and gets pulled down the middle, and then gets taken back up by the pump, you know, back up to the tank. And so the fluval is a little different than the sun, of course, just like an eheim might be a little different. And you know, eheim pulls things down and then back up to the tank. Everyone is different. So you have to know the flow. So that's number one, know the flow. Now, why should you know the flow? Well, that goes into number two. Number two is the proper media, you know, setting up your media in the right order. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, just think of it this way. You want the water that's running over your biological media to be as absolutely pristine or as clean as it can be, so that it doesn't clog up your media. I mean, it's really that simple. So you want to remove the particulates. You want to remove the particle, the detritus and the junk out of that water before it runs over your biological. Okay, and that's why we put mechanical, then we put our biological, right? So again, using this glass canister filter, you would put your sponges down. If this was a sun, you'd put your sponges down here, and then your biological rings, biohome, matrix, whatever, and then at the very top you could put some polishing, maybe some polish with some floss, maybe, you know, that bedding floss, the crib floss, or you could use a pinky. You know, I use a lot of pinky stuff like this this stuff here, this pinky floss. You know, I use a lot of this stuff. This is just a spare piece that got cut off. And again, know your flow. The water, as it travels through the pinky, has to go through the white first, and then the pink last. So again, the placement of your pinky floss has to do with the flow of your water. So these two fit together. So you put your mechanical, your sponges, and then those sponges can be put in the right order. Now, coarse sponge, medium, and then fine. So the water goes, in the case of where the water travels up back to the tank through the media, or through the through the filter, you're putting your coarse, your medium, your fine, then your biological, right? Your rings, your old gym socks, your scrubby pot scrubbers, whatever you're using, right? And then at the very top, some polish. Now, also at the top, you can also put some chemical filtration. Now, I'm not exactly positive because I haven't done any scientific tests on it, but I'm not sure if that chemical filtration, ChemiPure, Purigen, even charcoal, really, technically is a form of chemical, I guess. But I'm not sure or positive that if you put that first, it would really have a negative impact on the biological media. But the sort of the common wisdom out there these days is if you're going to put chemical filtration, if you're going to use your ChemiPures, your Purigens, put them last. Put them last in the flow of the water as it goes back to the tank. So the water gets its chemical treatment last. So those chemicals are in no way impacting the biological, the bacteria, the good bacteria that's living both in the sponges and in the biological. Okay, so that's number 2, media in the right order. Now, believe it or not, that applies to your hang-on backs. Okay, like in my, I have that marine land that I picked up that was thrown into an aquarium purchase I did, a used aquarium purchase. I have that marine land Emperor dual bio wheel, and I have a piece of pinky floss in a cartridge. And the water has to travel through that, and then it goes over some rings, and then it comes into the tank. So, so you have to think with flow and media placement, even with a hang-on back filter, and even in a sump. In the sump behind me, I'm conscious of how the water is moving through the sump and where things are placed. I'll get more into sumps later, because the flexibility you get from sumps is just insane. It's just crazy. Okay, so number 3, my number 3 tip for filtration is alternate service schedules. Alternating your service schedules. And by that, what I mean, somebody asked last week what kind of coffee I drink. I drink very dark roast. If you have a heart condition, you can't drink the kind of coffee you have to sign like a waiver. It's a very dark, strong roast. At any rate, so alternate your service schedules. So if you have, let's say, a hang-on back and you have a canister, never service them at the same time. Only service one and then wait a week or two and then service the other one. Okay? And so alternate. That way, if you do make a mistake in what you're doing, there's less of a chance that it's going to be a catastrophic mistake. You can still make a catastrophic mistake. That's still possible. Some people are very good at that. But your chances of a catastrophic mistake go way down when you do that. So I'll give you an example. I have on my Juvie Hat Nation, the Juvie Hat Nation 60-gallon grow out, the home of Photoshop, my red cap Lethrinops. There I have 2 canisters that have pre-filters on the intakes. I have that Marineland hang-on back. and I'll separate servicing about 2 weeks between them. When I get the reminder on my calendar that it's time to service the filters, I'll go and alternate, usually with a week or two between each servicing, and that actually is the best way to do it, in my opinion. Okay, now the alternating of let's say you only have one filter, like on my 100, the 100 acrylic. The one with the black sand and the black background, and then it's full of those elite cichlid plants. That one only has one FX6, and so when I service the FX6, I pull just enough water out of the tank to store the biomedia while I'm cleaning the canister, but I don't do like a full water change at the same time, because again, I don't want to shock the system. Even though there is, I'm sure, a lot of beneficial bacteria in the substrate living on all of the decor. I mean, there's a lot of bacteria there, so it'll probably be okay, and it would be very difficult to shock that. The larger the systems, a little bit harder it is to shock them. And I'll get more into that in a little bit. Your smaller tanks, your nano tanks, your 5 gallons, your 2.5s, your 10s, those can be shocked a lot easier than your large systems, because those large systems, I find, they tend to dilute your mistakes a little bit better. So, and they also have larger populations of bacteria. So, number 3, alternate service schedules. Number 4 is redundancy and backups. Number 4 is redundancy and backups. And what do I mean by that? Have multiple filters if you can afford it, and if it's right for your tank. Have multiple filters running. Like somebody asked me, a couple weeks ago, last week, someone asked a question about putting a ginormous filter, I think it was an FX6, on a 20 gallon, which would be a massive overkill. But if you dialed it way, way down, I guess, and we're planning to buy a much bigger tank later, maybe that would make sense. But instead of doing that, put 2 small canisters on it, and get more water movement, because you can have 2 outputs. Get a broader range of intake of detritus, because you can have 2 intakes. And if one of those canisters fails, you have another canister that is going to run while you buy a new impeller, or while when you go get a new gasket because you've got a leak or something. So have multiple filtration running so that you have backup and redundancy. Now, again, talking about that 100 where I only have an FX6, I have a Sunsun 704B in the wings, and if that fluval were to fail, it did once. I developed a leak in the purge gasket, the purge valve at the bottom of the fluval. FX6 started leaking, and I needed to order another one. So I had the 704B. I just simply pulled the media out of the FX6. Out of the FX6, put it into the baskets of the Sunsun, and I was good to go. So at any rate, that's redundancy and backups. If you don't have 2 filters, go on Craigslist, go on eBay, pick up a backup, a cheap backup. Pick up something that that is almost disposable, so that so you can actually have something in case, because things fail. I don't care what they are. The best canisters, Eheims fail, Sunsuns fail, right? Fluvals fail. They fail, and from time to time. Not always, but they do. Number five, and I hope I'm not going too fast. Number 5 is egg crate sponges. I really like egg crate sponges, and I'll tell you why. You see this just from a geography viewpoint, okay? Just from a geography viewpoint. If you look at this sponge, This is a tremendous amount of surface area, more than if it were just this. So this surface area is much less than this surface area. So again, you've got to know the water flow pattern of your filter, know the water flow pattern, and and know that your water, as it travels back to the tank or through your media, should be hitting this way, should be traveling this way. Just like with the pinky floss, it should be going this way through the coarse and then the fine. So it covers. You have a lot of capture real estate here to capture detritus, much more than you would this way. Okay, so these are egg crates. Some people call them waffle. I've picked mine up on eBay. You can find them on eBay, and you can buy packages of them. Sometimes they're called pond filters, and you've probably noticed by all these rough cuts. I cut my own filters. I buy bulk filters, and I go ahead and I cut them myself. This is from Swiss Tropicals. This is what they call the Matten filters, and you can see. Look at that. So this is a filter that's a wall in the sump behind me that the water is flowing through. The water flows this way, so there's a wall of this. And look at all the surface area that this sawtooth filter is giving for development of bacteria, beneficial bacteria, the catching of detritus. It just like multiplies your real estate there by about 10. So egg crate sponges. That's number 5. Number 6. Always rinse your biomedia and store your biomedia in tank water when servicing your filters. And for some of you that are veterans, you're listening to this and you're yawning, but I know I have a lot of young new fish keepers also that come to my channel, so this is more for them, because I know you old salty dogs, you know all this already. So use tank water. Use tank water to put your media in while you're cleaning out your canisters, and you can even rinse your sponges in tank water, and because those sponges are a home to beneficial bacteria. Now, in some cases, some people just use tap water, and I've used tap water as well on sponges. There is enough bacteria that probably wouldn't shock the system, but again, if you have a very large tank, and you have a lot of bacteria, on the walls and inside the substrate, and the larger the tank, the more forgiving that's going to be. If I had a 20 or a 10 or a 5 or a 2.5, I definitely would rinse everything in tank water, because I wouldn't want to risk killing off any beneficial bacteria, because the percentages are just not good there, and your chance of shocking the system is greater in the smaller tanks. Okay, so use tank water. And what I do, and you've seen it in my filters, right? I've got that canister, the Sun and the Fluval playlist. You've seen what I do. I pour out 2 buckets of tank water, and then I work on my canisters. So I'll use 1 bucket to rinse the baskets, and then the other bucket to just store the basket in while I clean out the canister. Or I'll pull the mesh bag of biomedia out of the hang-on back filter and rinse it once or twice in the tank water, and then dump it in the tank water bucket next to it. So I'll have 2 buckets of tank water. So tank water rinsing of biomedia. Now number 7, using output placement for oxygen production. The outputs of your filters, you can use those. You can use those for the creation of oxygen in your tank. Now, if you have a couple of air stones running, this might not be that important for you, even though I love to see surface water movement, because it prevents, like, sometimes you get a little bit of a film on the top of your tank, and I don't like that. I don't like the way it looks, and it It's just not appealing to me. I just don't like it on my tanks. So I like to have surface movement. So I position the outputs of my filters so they're slightly up. Right back here in this 150 behind me, the pump, the real pump that is moving the water up to the tank is it's like a blade, and it's pointed slightly up, and so it's pushing water very strongly this way. And then behind the overflow box is you have the output for the 704B working as mechanical filtration, sponges only, and that is going this way. So it's creating this confluence, all this movement and confluence of water, and so the surface is always pristine, and it's creating oxygen. Now in this tank, I wouldn't worry so much about oxygen because I have the water trickling through 100 holes that are drilled into the top of the sump. So that water is getting broken up and oxygenated quite heavily already as it travels through the sump and back to the water, or back to the tank. So that's more of a point for your, like my 60 gallon. I don't have any bubblers in there. So the 60 gallon is being oxygenated exclusively by the outputs of the Sun 302Bs, which are pointed up, and by the cascading water from the hang-on back filter. So the hang-on back filter, as it breaks the water, it's allowing the CO2, the carbon dioxide, to escape, and it's allowing oxygen to get in. So those are all helping to oxygenate the tank. I've become a little bit of a maniac about oxygen because I actually suffocated some fish a few years ago when I didn't research enough on some advice that I got, and ended up suffocating some fish. So it's one of those lessons that you learn the hard way, and that's the way I learned that one. We've all learned a little bit that way. Let's see here. Using power heads to move detritus to filter inputs. Now, I have this video from a while back. It's called Never Vacuum Again, which it's good clickbait, but the truth is you still need to vacuum. But the whole subject of that video was positioning power heads so that they move waste to the intakes of your filter. And that's what's going on here. I've got this high door back here, over 2,000 gallons an hour, pushing the water this way and moving it towards the intakes, which are the overflow box up here, and behind that, the intake of the 704B. So use your power heads. For those of you who want water movement, like I don't have two filters on the 100 gallon, so I have a power head on one side, and then on the other side I have the outputs of the Fluval FX6, and that's creating the movement. And then I have another power head that's lower in the tank, moving detritus towards the intake. So a lot of water movement, and a lot of really channeling, creating a stream towards the intakes of the filters. Now, the number 9, the use of coarse pre-filters. Now, this is something, I picked up a coarse pre-filter from Corey over at the Aquarium Co-op, and who now has a beard. I think he looks much better with a beard. I'm a beard fan, you know that. So Corey sells these pre-filters that you can put on to the intakes. I like them. They catch a lot of the big pieces and sort of dissolve them. And what I find inside my filters are just granules, granulated detritus. And I pull the coarse filter off with every water change and give it a good rinse in tank water. Again, it can be a home for beneficial bacteria. So why not? Why not use tank water to rinse it? And that coarse filter on the fluval intake releases a tremendous amount of waste, so it does hold a lot. And I also have it over the intakes of the 302s on the Sunsun 302s on the 60-gallon. So I recommend coarse. Be sure they're coarse. Don't use fine or medium. Be sure it's coarse, because otherwise you can get clogging. And also, just from hit and miss, I've learned that you're much better off pulling them off every week and with every water change, and giving them a good thorough rinse and putting them back on. I have heard some complaints of the pre-filters clogging and really slowing down the flow, and that can be very detrimental to your tank. So don't let that happen. Rinse them with every water change. Do the work, right? Do the work. And number 10 is become familiar with sump filtration. And I know sumps are not for everybody. In my mind, they're kind of the king of filters. If you go to some of the salt websites, some of the coral, people that keep corals, things of that nature, you see a lot of the use of sumps. Now, I love sumps for a couple of reasons. One, flexibility. You can reach in and pull out in 2 seconds. You need to add some charcoal because you want to remove some residual meds after you've treated your tank. You go get some charcoal, you drop it in. I mean, it's that fast. You don't have to crack open a canister, figure out where you're gonna place it, remove something so it'll fit. You don't have to do any of that. You simply just drop it in, and then after a couple of weeks, after you feel it's removed the residual meds, pull that charcoal out. And it takes about as long as it took me to tell you. That's how long it takes. You want to try a new biomedia like I did with those Brightwell blocks and cubes. You get them and you drop them in. Very simple. You want to rinse some sponges, you reach in, grab them. I mean, it's very, very easy. Number two, the second reason why I love sumps is they add water volume. They add a tremendous amount of volume to your total amount of water. So this is a 150, but is actually more like a 180 or a 190, because I have that 3-section sump below it with a lot of water in it. So what that does, it takes parts per million and dilutes them. It dilutes them down. So your parts per million of your nitrates are going to be lower just by virtue of the fact that you have a lot more water. So where would I consider a sump? 75 gallon, a 125. You can buy a hang-on back type of system like an overflow box, and you can plumb. You can do the plumbing for that, and it's not that difficult. There's lots of videos on doing it. You can also have tanks drilled. Just make sure that the tank is not the type of glass that shatters when you try and drill it. And but sumps, get to know sumps, learn about them. Don't do what I did. I jumped in with a bunch of crazy ideas, and then I had to backtrack and then learn about them. If you go to my sump playlist, you'll see that I actually changed things in some cases in a pretty major fashion, because I just sort of jumped in and then made the mistakes and then pulled out and then tried to figure out what I had learned. That's not how I recommend you learn. That's the way I learned on that. But sumps, they are king. They do make a little bit of noise, but listen for a second. Tell me if you hear this. It's a very light trickle, almost like if I was like camping next to a brook and the brook was maybe 20, 30 feet away. It's a little bit like that. You hear the water moving a little bit. Some people love that sound. If you want total silence, in my experience, canisters are the most quiet. Hang-on backs, they can splash, break the surface of the water, so they can be a little noisy. I went from hang-on backs to canisters originally because I had an aquarium next to a TV and it was just too noisy. So even with a high water line, these hang-on back filters were still making a lot of splash. So there's a little bit of noise. You can dial it in, and eventually you get the sump. This one's in my bedroom, and the noise is nothing. I have a Durso. You can look up the video. It's a Durso, D-U-R-S-O, that is in the bottom of this, and that helps to quiet things down because you don't have the long splash of the water traveling down the overflow box. Okay, so those are my 10 best filtration tips, and if you have some, I would like to hear them. I'd like you to add them to the comments, either here on this video right now in the live stream, or you can wait for the video to post and put your comments there. I will pick them up and probably talk about them in next week's video. As you know, that's what I do. The reason I don't take up comments in the live stream is it can be very distracting and pull me off subject, off topic. And even though, I love when you guys say hi to me and you make comments. I really like that a lot. Sometimes I'll catch it out of the corner of my eye. But if I get into it too much, during the body of the live stream, it can be a bit distracting. Now, with that in mind, by the way, thank you to anyone who's done a super chat so far. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate the support of the channel. So I want to talk about some comments that were made last week, and this is just some questions and comments. And if you're here and I mention your name, raise your hand. This is by NYCJT62. NYCJT62. I'm sure that must mean something. Maybe you're from New York and your initials are CJT and you were born in 62. That would be my guess if I wanted to be a code breaker. What is the fish that you have kept the longest and oldest? Well, those of you who follow my channel, you know the old man. That was that OB. That was the first African cichlid that I acquired, and he lasted, I don't know what, 4 or 5 years, and he got really big and very pretty. And then when I had a Quillomeris breakout from a mistake in quarantine, I lost him. But that's probably the longest. Even though now I think that now it's got to be the Z-Rock. The Z-Rock that is in the 100. He doesn't get a lot of camera time, but he's a beautiful Z-Rock. There might be a little bit of a hybrid. He's got a little bit of black in his fins, but he's been around a very long time. That Z-Rock has survived a lot and has been with me a very, very long time. Lived in this tank for a while and started to get abused, so I put him in the 100, and he's really thrived over there. HV8019. HV8019. Now, this isn't a question, this is just a comment, and I actually laughed out loud. He or she said, I call trolls Cheeto fingers living in their mother's basements. Cheeto fingers living in their mother's basements. I think that's the best description I've ever heard. All right, thank you for that. Francis Arroyo, when we were talking about the good things of the hobby and the bad things of the hobby, Francis Arroyo said one of the bad things was not researching online vendors, and I learned the hard way one time and been smarter and lucky since then. And let's see here. I think I was right in the middle of talking about Francis Arroyo's comment, and there was a vendor that was running around. Let me adjust this a little bit. There we go. There was a vendor that was running around a while back, and what that vendor would do is they would deliver a few good fish at a low price, and then they would just not deliver to a whole bunch of people. So it's like a Ponzi scheme. They would get a couple people in. Those people would talk about how they had picked up a really good deal from this person, and then they would proceed to just screw a bunch of people with payments and then disappear. And so this is why I tend to stick to the more reliable, the more reliable vendors. And by that, what I mean is, your Imperial, Cunningham, James Largo over at the Cichlid Shack, the Wonder of Cichlids, right? These guys, these people have been around for a while. They're legit. I know I'm missing a few people, but Live Fish Direct, Josh Davis, and they've been around for a while. They're all in. They're not fly by night. They didn't just acquire a couple fish and all of a sudden try and become vendors. They've been at it for a while, and so you're going to be in pretty good shape. That person is going to be protecting their reputation, and so they're not going to allow a situation to go bad, go south, and then not fix it, because they know they're going to get a lot of bad rap. The Zen Ginger, and I lost a fish with Popeye, and I currently have one with Ick, both from my community tank. Turned out my filter was clogged. Super bummed, but hopefully all is well now. Well, I hope all is well, Zen Ginger, and I hope you're still here. The after that little interruption, the that kind of goes back to, and in this case, it wasn't really your fault. I mean, something happened in the clogging. Maybe there was something you could have done more preemptively. I don't know, but it goes to show the impact of water quality. One of the things that jumped out at me from Corey, when Corey gave his talk over at the South Coast group, the fish keeping group down at the South Coast, one of the main things, apart from salt, all the amount of time he spent talking about salt, the other thing that jumped out at me was how he talked about it really comes down to water quality. A lot of it is just water quality. If you want to keep healthy fish, if you want them to grow, you want them to show colors, the water's got to be perfect. So, as close to perfect as you can get it. So, FH Love, I have bad luck with fish in the winter times preparing for this upcoming season with lots of salt and other meds, and I keep flowerhorn cichlids. Being in Southern California, I don't really, we have kind of moderate weather year round, even though it can get cold in the winter. We can get high 30s, low 40s, and the summers can be very brutal. So we can get up into the hundreds, right? So, but if your tanks are indoors, usually you're okay. But so I can't really relate too much to that, except, I imagine you have to have safeguards in areas like, let's say you have a power failure in a place that gets severe winter conditions. Yeah, you're going to have a real problem. I really, if we end up moving from Southern California, relocating, retiring somewhere else, that will be an issue. And check my connections here. All right. So ATF in the house. Hey, Ben, do you think you can have too many tanks? I've talked about that before, right? You can get so many tanks that it stops being fun. You spend all your time trying to do maintenance and work, and it just goes over the line into a lack of fun, into too much stress and worry. You can't take vacations without worrying. Yeah, that's too many tanks. L Flower 1 stars. How long can you not do a water change and still be okay? That's a dangerous question. I don't know. I don't even know if I want to answer that. First of all, how many fish are in the tank? How big is the tank? What filtration do you have on it? Right? What's the bioload? What's the water turnover? Things of that nature. What's your starting point? Like, where are your parameters normally to begin with? Just too many variables. A very heavily stocked tank, that thing can get polluted really quick, right? Because you have so much ammonia production going on. So I've gone 2 weeks. Because I went on vacation, and I didn't like it. Ads A
How long does it take to establish a tank boss? I have 2 fish that seem to be battling for around a month now. You know, you may not have a tank boss problem. You may have an issue with they're too similar, and so they're battling for dominance, and so that might be the problem. Let's see here. So there may be other factors there. You know, and the truth is, if you keep African cichlids, there's probably going to be that ongoing battle forever. You know, it's not going to stop. There's always going to be someone challenging, someone coming up the ranks, right? So you just have to kind of hope that eventually they reach a balance where they don't kill each other. Zen Ginger again, my mollies get stuck on stupid in a corner all the time. So we were talking about, someone asked a question about fish that get stuck in a corner. They just swim up and down and up and down and up and down. They're like in a hypnotic trance, right? And Zen Ginger said that her mollies get stuck on stupid. And so, yeah, that happens. Now, you is Big Salinas. That's the name of the person. You is Big Salinas. Yeah, Ben, he said in response to Zen Ginger, yeah, my wife gets me going up and down a wall. So I guess he gets stuck in a wall going up. All right. KG Cichlids, Kevin wanted to know what caused my Malawi sand diver to dive under the gravel. Were you putting a net in? Yes, I was going to go net. I used to have this big sand diver, and it turned out to be a female. So I ended up actually giving it to Nolan, who I just mentioned a little bit. Nolan's cichlids down in South Bay, and Santa Ana actually. And I ended up giving it to Nolan, and it was a big sand diver. And I went to go net him, to go get him, and he disappeared. He was gone. Now, interestingly enough, I've had Lethronops do it as well. They do like just a head first dive right into the sand, and they disappear. And what that taught me was that if you're going to let's say rescape, or you're going to pull all your substrate out, and you have cichlids, be real careful, because do a head count, because you may have one of them that's buried in the sand, and you're going to put that guy in a bucket with the rest of the sand. So be careful. But this sand diver was, I'm talking this big, a big sand diver, went completely under, and all you could see was one eye sticking out, and one fin, right? So he just had this eye and this fin. It was hilarious. I ran to grab my camera, and I think I got like a few seconds of him in there. He was pretty funny. Troy Visser, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Troy Visser, HBHS. You know how I say we always learn from each other? The bags that ship are breeding bags, different than the ones you get from a local fish store when you buy fish. That's interesting. So I didn't know this. That apparently the bags are breathing bags. They allow oxygen in. I didn't know that. So that makes a little more sense why you can get a fish that gets lost. UPS misplaces the box, and you get the fish in 4 days, and the fish is still alive. You're like, how did that happen, right? So breathing bags. Thank you, Troy. Duke City Aquariums. What are the plants behind you? These plants here are all from Elite Cichlids. They're just plastic plants. I've tried real plants. They got destroyed, and I gave up on them. You can see the video in The Truth About Plants in an African Cichlid Tank. And so I went to plastic, and these are made by a florist and that specializes in aquarium plants, Elite Cichlids. As a matter of fact, in about a week, I'm going to give away a $20 gift card for Elite Cichlids. So tune in next week. I'm probably going to, anybody who's done super chats, anybody who makes comments, I'm going to go ahead and put you in a drawing. I'm going to put a bunch of names in a hat, and we're going to give away a $20 Elite Cichlid gift card. They'll ship to you in the United States. Troy Visser again. I want a Lethrinops again. My juvie growing out overnight went downhill. Somebody probably beat him up. I want my own Photoshop. Photoshop is my Lethrinops red cap. That's what he's referring to. I just showed him to you when I was walking around. At any rate, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry he got beat up. I think I got mine from Live Fish Direct. So he's got obviously a good strain of red caps. So hello, Elflower. Thank you for joining. And hey, Brian. Looks like you're saying hi to Brian. I was wondering if I lost you, Elflower. I think I lost a lot of folks during that power loss there. I appreciate those of you that hung in. It was, you know what's funny? I could read your comments. Your comments kept coming through. Some of you were wondering if I was still talking and that kind of thing. And no, I wasn't talking. I was panicking. That's U.S. Big Salinas, another comment from U.S. Big Salinas. Hey Ben, why do my fish become less active after a 50% water change to the point where they look like they're about to die? That concerns me. That concerns me a lot, and I'll tell you why. After a water change, your fish should be extra active. I mean, imagine how you would feel if you were stuck in a closet with 5 or 6 other people that were sweaty and farting constantly, and all of a sudden the door opens and you can go outside and breathe fresh air. Would you be less active or more active? You would be normally more active, and you would sometimes they get into breeding dress. It triggers breeding activity. That fresh water should be doing something very positive. So either the way you're treating the water, there might be something off. Be sure you check the dose amounts to make sure you're dosing correctly. There might be something added by your local water provider to your water that is acting a bit toxic to your fish. Test the water coming out of your tap. Maybe there's ammonia in there. Maybe there's super high nitrates. I don't know. But that concerns me. They should not look like they're about to die after a water change. I have sometimes trickled the water in, and that helped, to refill the water a little bit, refill the tank a little bit more slowly. That's helped from time to time. And here's some comments that were made under the last live stream. Gary Zacharin 1. Gary with a Z, Zacharin 1 day ago. Ben, I would like to email you rather than post my question. Nothing sensitive, but rather an intro and a question. Cannot seem to find. Okay, if you folks want to email me, use my Instagram address, ben.o.cichlid @gmail. Okay, ben.o.cichlid @gmail, and I'll try and get back to you. Okay. Rob 4 days ago. Good subject matter, Ben. My biggest problem is of my own making, and that was mixing males and females in my tank. It was a bad idea, and now I have about 20 pig ugly gray-brown hybrids. Okay. I think that's happened to a lot of people. They go and they just throw a bunch of fish together and they get hybrids. They start to get these mixes of fish, and that happens. I try and have an all-male tank. I do think that the hawk in the tank behind me, I think the hawk is a female, and she will be getting removed very soon. As soon as I can get Nolan up here to pick her up. Nolan, if you're listening, come get that hawk. But sometimes people like to keep females because it can fire up the males and put them into their full blossom of color, right? Their full bloom of color. That also, though, can create a lot of aggression. One of the reasons that red cap Lethrinops, I think, stays so colored up is there is a female red cap in that tank. Fortunately, red caps aren't super aggressive when they're into breeding, into their breeding regimen. But some fish, like let's say I put a female eye biter in here. If I were to put a female eye biter or a female Venusus in the tank behind me, I'd have a mass killing, because they just go nuts. They just lose it when they breed. Roland 23074 days ago. Ben, I have been a sub here for a while and greatly respect your opinion. Thank you. It's always just an opinion, remember that. One, is a 120-gallon high a good tank for African cichlids, haps? And two, can I put 2 larger sized silver dollars in a 36 bow front with 3 larger sized angelfish and approximately 15 others of various species? The 120 is free with the 2 silver dollars. They're absolutely gorgeous. I'm pretty sure my filtration on 36 can handle the bioload. When I get questions that I don't have personal experience on, I'm a little bit reluctant to answer. I have heard of people putting silver dollars in with African cichlids and getting a good result. I don't know. I mean, I think I personally like having 5 to 6 feet of horizontal swim space for cichlids, especially your open water cichlids. And the Malawi trout I have in the tank behind me, you can see him up there, is becoming huge. He's probably going to need 10 feet of space at some point. I mean, he's just becoming a monster. So I would say put some peacocks in that high tank. You should be okay. I don't know about mixing those species. I'm not sure if that could turn into something good or it can turn into a bloodbath. I can't comment on that. If you folks know more about that, comment in the comment below. Certainly you're being aware and conscious of the filtration. That's a good point, right? Because to support the bioload, you got to have the filtration. My rule of thumb is: are you turning the tank over 5 to 10 times an hour? So 5 to 10 times an hour is that water running through filtration. You should be okay for a big bioload. So that's it for those. I apologize for the break in the Wi-Fi connection. I'm not sure what happened. That Wi-Fi connection tested out very strong before the stream. It might have been something with either the connection itself or it might have been the Apple phone. I have been having some trouble with my Apple phone, and I think Apple and maybe Samsung, maybe all of them, they probably build something in that makes the phone blow up after a couple years, so you're forced to upgrade. I'm a conspiracy theorist, what can I say? Thank you to all of you who super chatted, okay? I know there were a few of you in there. I'm sure Candy or Kevin might have said thank you to you. Thank you so much for your support. It is appreciated. And thank you to my moderators, Kevin, Candy, and Denny. And thank you to everybody who follows on Instagram, ben.o.cichlid. Follow on Instagram if you care to. Come over to the Facebook group. It's pretty friendly over there. ben.o.cichlid over on Facebook. And that's it. Usually I would open this up to questions, but because of our little delay, I'm going to have to forego that. But do post questions under this video when it finally posts to Facebook. I'm sorry, when it posts to YouTube. Put your questions in the comments below, and I will try to get to them, and I'll also try to get to questions that you asked during this live stream. Okay? So thank you, everybody, and I appreciate your support. Thank you for hanging in there during the interruption, and you folks really do rock. I do mean that. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.